Well, good evening and welcome to Season 2, Episode 30 of the KCCA FC TV show. Tremendous growth we're having on the show. And in this particular one, we'll be wrapping up the Season 2020-2021 because last week, remember, when FUFA put up that letter, that meant that all football activities in Uganda had to come to a halt. After the upsurge in numbers due to the COVID-19, we did not wrap that season. That is last week, but we have that this week because we have a guest, just like we did last week. We'll be getting to know who this guest is, and also so much because it's a silly season, that time of the year, in terms of football activities. My name is Magero Moses Mwanje. I'm your host. You and I are definitely walking this journey together. Now, to start it off with the show, I told you we have a guest for this week's show. He's a person who's been around football for quite some time. He's a fan of the game. He's done so much for the game. I'll let him talk about himself and exactly what he does in terms of football in Uganda. But we'll be wrapping up the season 2020-2021 with him because he's been able to keep tabs of what was following in around the game in terms of everything Uganda Premier League and also the Uganda Cup and everything football in Uganda. We'll have him introduce himself and then we'll take it on from there. Sir.
Thank you, Moses Magero, for inviting me to KCCA TV. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Colin Subika and I am a KCCA fan. I'll keep it as simple as that, but as and when you request for more information, I am a KCCA fan, Colin Subika.
Yeah, definitely at that. I will ask for more information. Someone might be asking, you're wrapping up the season 2020-2021. Why Colin Subika? So briefly tell us, who is Colin Subika in terms of football in Uganda and what do you do around the game?
Well, I'm a football fan. That goes without saying, but particularly KCC, I was introduced to this club when I was a baby in 1982. Wow. My dad used to take me to training sessions for the players then. Yeah, so from then on, I've been a KCC fan through and through. And well, we grew up as kids, of course, supporting the league. When was I first in Nachivo? 1986, wow. 87. Yes. So I've been a KCC fan, saw them through the 90s. Then there was when I, of course, now as a teenager, and a couple of my friends who were older than me had started joining the club, the Sewage and the likes. We used to have a tournament in Kawempe called Kayofa, and I played in Kayofa, and that's when I got to know the Sekajas and Willis Jambade and Lawrence Mosoke, but they were much older than us. Okay. But they did manage to get to KCC, and then of course then I got much closer to the club. I attended training sessions and Coach Mike, and then of course, I was in school. Everyone has played school football at some point. Yeah. Yeah, but then when I got to the university, I had played the first division football, the Wandega FC, and another team called Silent Banners. Then when Coach Mike came to KCC in 2003, he had trained with him because when he was the IU university coach, yeah, we met and we pretty much kicked off a certain relationship which has been on for a very long time. So me and my coach Mike have been friends since 99, 2000. Okay. So when he came to KCC in 2003, and of course then now I was also I think I was done in university and what, so I said he allowed me to train with the club, so that's how close I've been. In between 2003 and now, I've been a helpful factor in very many
in the game
aspects
in Uganda.
Game, yeah, and
wow.
Of course, generally, when you look at the Ugandan game, I'm first a KCC fan, but I'm generally a football fan. You find me at Villa Park, you find me at URA FC, you can find me at Vipers, helping out either with players or coaches. Several other things as and when help is needed.
Well, we have a technical person in the studio with us today on the show. We'll get straight into it. The season 2020-2021 has just ended after FUFA came up with that later about a week and a half ago, and communicated that football in Uganda had to come to a halt because of the upsurge in the numbers of the COVID-19. So that meant for the second season on the bounce, KCCFC has not registered any silverware because the club last won anything in 2019, and that was after the club had won the league that year and also went on to win the Sekafa Kagame Cup in Rwanda. Since then, up to now, okay, yeah, there was a Super Cup beginning of that season when KCCFC played Vipers, but since then, up to now, KCCFC has not won any silverware. So just to wrap up the season, did you see this happening at the beginning of the season? Did you envision it? What do you think probably did not just happen right for the football club?
Oh yes, I would safely say a lot wasn't going right, but not alarmingly wrong. The one thing you must, when you just mentioned that you last won a league title in 2019 and the Sekafa to just the following a couple months after, you want to look at that kind of win was coming from a backdrop of very many wins, the very successful spell. KCC's most successful spell, besides the 70s, was this term. When you look at over the last 30 years, it's only between 2016 and 19 that KCC was playing football from a totally different planet, so to speak. But when you factor in the 2 seasons that have passed, because of the pandemic and what has been surrounding the game, it's quite unfortunate that it has turned out the way it has turned out. One is that Vipers won the league the other year, 2020, but were not crowned. And the games were also
about 4 or 5 games.
4 or 5 games were not played. The same as this has been the second season running where the league hasn't been completed. I'm talking fixtures. So it's quite a trying time for literally everybody, right from the federation to the World Football Body. I mean, we are having the Euros, which was supposed to be last year, this year. So there's a bit of a challenge here with the global pandemic of COVID-19. And well, you would say it's 2 trophyless seasons because, truthfully speaking, they haven't won the league. Yeah, but how much football has been played during those years, rather those 2 years? So it's also a bit, it's an unfortunate situation that we've been hit by the pandemic, and there isn't much activity that has taken place. Of course, kudos to the winners. The rules are very clear. Once 75% of the games have been played, whoever is whether the federation has a discretion to declare who wins and who doesn't. Thing is that in the other season, 2020, KCC finished second. In this particular one, we've been a distant fourth. Yeah, and of course there will be several reasons why.
So Colin, I will go back to the season 2019-2020 and still even this one. You've talked about the pandemic happening. Well, it did not only happen for KCCFC, it happened for everybody. And but when you look at KCCFC for the past 2 years, several players have been coming in. There's been an exodus of quite a number of players leaving the football club. Some senior players, players that you felt that probably had something that they could still have added to the football club. In very many people's perspectives. I will just may not quote, but in your own perspective, you've said that the pandemic probably hit the football club. Probably, is it only the pandemic that would have caused no silverware for the past 2 years?
No, not necessarily. There had been a certain sort of reluctance from the technical side, so to speak. First, the plan was to get in kids from the under 17 and mash them up with some experienced players so that we are comfortably competing for the league, but majorly for the continental competitions. So that kind of mix-up had the technical side kind of reluctant because of the so many wins we had gotten. So we were first of all in a place we had never been. KCCA had been winning several games, and we have never dominated the league like that up until, like I said, over the last 30 years. So there were some problems.
Yeah, definitely. You say technical team. So is it safe to say that there was complacency?
Yes, there was a lot of complacency. We thought, because when you remember that in 2017, Alan Okero, Kiza, Mustafa and Poloto Julius came to the senior team and played fantastic football. So I kind of think it got over the technical side, that we thought maybe these kids are actually going to play football. They have played some football, but you kind of think that there was an over-reliance on kids delivering. And I thought that was a problem.
Yeah, when you talk about over-reliance on the boys from the junior side, only last season we had only one player being promoted from the junior side, that is Ayela Dominic. Compared to the other season, we were about 6 of them. That is 2019, 2020. We had the Chizabo Kenyans, Anaku Sadat. We had a number of them. Musa Ramadan, Jurwa Hassan. So on this season, where KCCFC finished 4th, only one was promoted, and that player has not kicked a ball for the football club for the entire season. So when you talk about the players coming in from the junior side, I understand there could have been many there season, but this season only one. And he has not even kicked a ball.
One is that season that we talked about, when we picked one player, there wasn't much reserve football that was played. So we kind of thought that the Magambos, the Achai Herberts should have been mature enough to take us to the league. That's why there was none picked. But there were several others bought in, from Keziron Kizito to Ashraf Mugume to Aheebwa Brian and several others. So there were introductions to the team, but the team had set a standard way too high that these kids had to go through a learning process.
I also go back on the complacency. Yes, there could have been some of the players that joined in 2019, 2020, and have still been probably learning in the season 2020, 2021. I'll give you an example of Chizabo Kenya, promoted the other season, but made his debut only this season, I think in a CAF game against AS Chigali in that was at Chitende. So still on exactly on that, look at the numbers of the players that came in. About 9 at the beginning of the season. We had some players that had been in the league, around the league for some time. If you were to give your assessment on the players that came in, we had Balinya, we had Aheebwa, got injured early in the season. We had Charles Wanga, who has been the top scorer for the football club with 12 goals, and many others, Ashraf Mugume. Your assessment on some of the signings that we brought in?
Yeah, but football is it's quite an interesting thing. You kind of you've got to look at where the technical team was looking when they signed Iguma Balinya after a previous season with Police, then went to Tanzania and bounced back. That's the boy who scored 20 goals or something.
20-something goals.
So you kind of thought that we needed to beef up in attack after the departure of the Patrick Kadus and the Alan Chambades. So you kind of thought that with the number of goals they had scored in Police, and probably with better service, then he should have beefed up in that kind of respect. But Balinya has looked tired, looked jaded, looked retired. It's such an unfortunate thing, and I had several interviews with him, rather talks with him on why he wasn't performing, and he seemed very unmotivated. It's such a disturbing thing. They wanted, the technical side wanted to mash up some experienced players with the existing youngsters. But it hasn't come to fruition.
But what could cause that? Probably a player 2 seasons ago at the top of his game. I mean, everyone is saying his name, everyone is asking why isn't he in the national team? He leaves the country. Not only him, by the way, I will speak about.
There will be several others.
Who the club picked from. Very many clubs. The Chigozi came in from Police. Aheebwa, okay, unfortunately got injured early on. But there have been several others. Plus also the youngster in Andrew Kawoya and what.
That's right.
But a player, a season or 2 ago, up, and everyone is saying he's everything for the game. I mean, that's where we should center our focus. And then 2 years after, he cannot deliver.
I don't know. I want to believe that it could possibly and sadly be the end of the road for Iguma Balinya. For a person like me who saw him in 2008 in Coca-Cola in Old Kampala, and then he went to Chitende. Then he had been half and puffing at Lueza, and then quietly in several other lower division clubs. You kind of think that was just one head of the season, but was that the quality had actually waned. The powers of the player were on the wane. I don't think he's going to really bounce back as the top player that was meant to be, that promised so much in 2008, and one that played against Police. So for Balinya, it's downright personal. He's, I think, disoriented. I don't know for God knows what.
I will, as we wind up this segment, I will just ask probably, not for me, I don't want to write most of them off or even any of them off. I want to just find out what can a player do after having a very bad season like this one. Someone will say you cannot complain when you finished fourth, but a club like KCCFC finishing fourth is cause to worry. It
is cause to worry, so whichever way you want to look at it. When you look at the league, there's not that many clubs that have the luxury of the resources that KCC has. And when we were beginning, when I said we, I was quietly in the backroom staff of Coach Mike's coaching team. From 2015 when we got the job. Our job was to win the league every year, but most importantly, to play well on the continent. Now, when you don't win the league 1 year, and then you get into you declare, they say, the cup winner, and you fall to AS Kigali, then the following year you finish fourth. There's a reason to worry. Things are terribly wrong and they must be fixed.
Well, that's Collins. Things are terribly wrong and things must be fixed. I think he has a point to make there. We're going to be going to a break. We still have so much to discuss because we had a change in guard midway the season and so much still happened during the 2020-2021 season. All this after this break. Now, welcome back from that break. We still have Collins on the show tonight, guys. We have a guest, I told you. And we'll still be breaking down the 2020-2021 season. And Colin, straight at it, something that very many people ignore. People focus so much on the transfers the club made, but there were a couple of departures that were done. Okello leaving the football club in January, that was the other year. And then towards the end of that season, before even the season started, Chiza Mustafa leaving the football club. So how much, because these are players that had been around the philosophy, around the system. I mean, they were integral members of the football club, played in the CAF Confederations Cup and the Champions League with the football club. So how big a blow was this to the club?
It was a big blow, but I would love to call it an opportunity. KCCA is a small club, Uganda is a small footballing club. So for us to actually have those departures, players going to professional clubs, is a good thing. That's one. That's the exposure part. How about the finance? KCC made a lot of money in several of those departures, away from the Ochayas departing to these Alan Okellos and Mustafa Kiza. Did it leave the team weak? Obviously. But you must know that we are not big superpowers either on the continent or worldwide. So we have to resort to being a selling club. For me, it's a positive that we could actually develop these kids from under 17, from when they were young, to making them proper country and continental stars. For me, that was a good thing. I would love to see that even every year, even if we make KCC weaker, so to speak, because as you send away a player, you get mileage, you get the money, then the club runs better. Then you again fund the lower activities to produce more.
Well, but we find out there watching the show will say the fact that KCCFC has been able to rub shoulders with the best on the continent with Al Ahly, they will actually say that KCCFC is as big as those clubs. You've just said that we may not have the same financial power. You're absolutely right about that. But in the past years, the football club was able to sell and still win. I'll give you an example. The time when Derek Kinsibambi left, the time when Geoffrey Serunkuba left, the time when Ochaya Joseph left, when Ochan left. A couple of players, Habib Kabu and all the rest, the club still won. So what is the difference now and then?
Yes, you've got to fault them, but it's quite a delicate place to be. Getting the balance, that right balance, where you sell a player and still continuously win. There have been clubs in Europe, for example Ajax, that have suffered the same. They keep churning out players, going to the big boys, the Madrids and the Milans of today. but as Ajax continues to win. So it is down to a very, very strong structure, which has been a process. To be honest, no club in Uganda has done what KCC has been doing over the last 4 or 5 years, where you need to beat the players are leaving at very good figures. So the club is making money and they continuously competing. So you have kind of think that we need to recruit within the league players who are on the verge of playing professional football, so they leave us with a winning mentality as well as be sold.
Okay.
That for me is the kind of balance one needs to
You say players that are on the verge of probably that need a little bit of polishing.
Yes.
Where does that leave the recruitment plan? That is in terms of promoting the kids, because does that die?
No, you actually, the thing is getting the right mix. You like how we said, you promote about 4 or 5, then bring in 3 more. That holds. At first I thought it was a very wrong thing to have so many players coming in and so many players coming out. But the kind of trajectory the club was taking, you couldn't run away from it. Yeah, you needed to compete at the continent. That means you needed to grow locally, those that can make you competitive. But also you needed to bring out.
You needed to sell.
Sell. So those that come when they've played some football will definitely be sold. But how do you replenish? So you need some younger, fresher legs. It's kind of a delicate balance. But one thing I want us to agree is that it was a good place to be. It was a place KCC had never been. So even the several mistakes that could have been made are a learning curve. We are on a learning curve, and we should cut. I've seen the fans, throwing daggers at the coaches, the chairman, the technical team, the administrative team. It's a learning process. We even the Madrids were not at Madrid the way they were in 1950s. So it's a learning process.
You're absolutely right. It's a learning process. I will get later to that. But if you were to choose between selling and making money, that is selling players about 2-3 every season, and losing the identity of probably having silverware every season, which one would you take? Or winning every season and probably keeping your players, which one would you take? The making of the money gets the team a little bit sustainable. The winning probably takes the team.
That's a good one, Moses, and one that can actually drag. But here is what happens. So you win the league with a set of players. Then those players go to the continent and get coverage. When they get coverage, they are playing the El Ahlis, the Wydad Casablancas, the Esperances here. They've come to town, and the host KCC has hosted them, the Mamelodi Sundowns. So they begin to pick up on one or two of your players. Listen, these are clubs that can afford any kind of wage bill. So you find that KCC, for example, in the first 2-3 years under Mike, we had a salary cap of about 1.5 million shillings. And then you're talking about a player who's going to earn 3,000 shillings. I mean, your hands are tied. So you opt to go for the money as well as improve the lifestyle of the player. So what you do is that you sell that one and make sure you produce another. It's quite a delicate, it's a delicate position. There's one, I'd remember, for example, I would quickly pick Masiko Tom. Masiko Tom was off a very good injury plague but good season. And Vipers offered him crazy amounts of money. KCC didn't have that budget. What would you do? You let the player go. But that one went on a free, and that was wrong on our part. But there are several others that were bought during the time. Ochaya. TP Mazembe is coming. It's rather Lusaka Dynamos is knocking on the door. How do you fail to receive $150,000 when in Uganda you see the game as it is amateur, and it needs as much money as you can ever need. So a sale of a player is a good thing.
You're absolutely right, Colin. Definitely. Still, especially on the part of selling players, it's been happening before. A football club in Uganda, let me say, a player at KCC probably earns $1 million or 1.5, let me say, a season. Sorry, a month.
Yeah.
And as you play the games we play, there's Sekafa, there's CAF, and a team comes and then says, I need Peter Magambo. Yeah. And they offer Magambo, probably they've seen his agent or something, and then they say every month he'll be getting $5,000. Yes. And he's getting a sign-on fee of, in the transaction, there'll be probably, let me say, $100,000.
$100,000,
What do we do? Because this is going to happen in the game. It's been happening. What do we do as a football club? Because we are going to be losing this kind of players every season. What is the strategy when it comes to that? Do we grow the welfare of the players, probably pay them better, but then has the game grown to that level that you have a player at KCCA probably earning $2,000 US? I mean, does the business make sense?
That's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
And it has been troubling the management at KCC of choosing. Do you continue to be the East African bullying boys, or do you become a selling club? That kind of balance is quite a difficult one, Mr. Magero, if you may ask. But I mean, you tell me, some club is coming and paying $100,000 to KCC, whose budget is up to like 3 billion now, but those just outflows. And KCC as a good club, you've got to look at the inflows as well. How much money is the club getting in? So we get all these sponsors from StarTimes to MTN to everything. They need coverage. So once we back it up with sale of players, then it's incumbent on the technical team to continue producing more. It's quite a tasking job, but you cannot, in this free market of demand and supply, where the Madrid will come and say they want Magambo, you have no choice but to let Magambo go.
You definitely have no choice. On the quality, what exactly happened to KCCA this season? You've said this could have been good for the football club. I want exactly to talk about that. There's been this growing thing that probably we're invisible. Do you think we're invisible?
At some point we were unplayable locally. At some point we were unplayable, and it was such a beautiful moment. There's a time we won back-to-back league titles, if you remember, and we were playing the Mamelodi Sundowns, the Esperance the other day, Masare, Petro, Atletico. Several clubs were coming to town, and it was the talk of town. Who wouldn't want to be in that kind of situation? Thing is that this kind of blip, a 2-year spell, should actually make us, what was this lockdown supposed to do? Rebuild.
Get us back to the drawing board and
get you,
focus.
Correct, rebuild your resources, rethink, relearn, and everything. So for me, I think we should treat these 2 years as a learning process. That how did we do it right the other side? Back then when we were winning. Have we been complacent? Yes. What are the lessons to pick? And then we move forward from there. But we need to come back to continental competitions, that's for sure. For me, that was the $1 million thing. This league title comes with the very little money that comes that a club earns. But once you get to the group stages, we've seen KCC getting to the group stages, and you could see the buzz that was around the club. We got to $1 billion shillings.
$1 billion in Confederations Cup, $2 billion in Champions League.
Who wouldn't want that, Mr. Magget? That's what clubs play for. Otherwise, what's the point? So we're supposed to win the league or win the cup to go into cup competitions and play well and earn money.
Earlier on in the first segment, you talked about the complacency, and probably, just like you said, the club could have felt at a time that we were invisible because we're beating everything.
That's exactly. I would say this time was an unprecedented time. KCC had never been this successful. So it's possible, it's natural for people to be complacent. It's natural for people to take certain things as givens. But now here it is, 2 years, there were no givens. There are no givens. So we back to the drawing board on how to get back.
Interesting. You said 2 years. I'll give you an example. Manchester United last won a league title in 2013. This is about 8 years since they won silverware. We're getting to the 9th. Do you think that we might be looking at 2 years? Could this go on? Because they say there's always that time when, for example, a football club comes and just sweeps everything. Barcelona had it, that they swept almost everything for a certain period of time, and then that period stopped, the time when they had Pep Guardiola. This time around, we have a vivid example with United. Could this go on with KCCFC for about more 2 years?
You've asked the right person. Between 1997 and 2008, we won nothing. KCC, if I even look at what United. The European clubs are going through. Villa, they last won the league in 2004. It's 17 years. So it's down to work, how much work you put in. The references in Europe are a bit different. Look, when Man United were on top of the Premier League, it was always a two-horse race, Arsenal and Man United. Then Chelsea came into the fray, Man City came into the fray, Spurs are contenders, Leicester will pick an odd team, Liverpool, the perennial winners, are back. So that whole thing is a bit complex. There's so many powers pulling from all directions. Locally here, KCC are a superpower, KCC are a traditional club. They should only fight with Villa, Express, and the newcomers, Viper. and maybe URA. So within those 5 clubs, KCC shouldn't get, unless something terrible goes wrong, we shouldn't have a longer spell as we had between 97 and 2008.
Maybe using the United example was way too big.
Yeah.
Villa, since 2004, up until 2021, have not won a league title.
Yes.
And I don't know how many years are between 2004 and 2021, but I mean, this is a club that has about 16 league titles. KCCFC runs second with 13. Yeah. So, I mean, how different is this kind of situation from what they are facing? You might say we are more organized. You might say we have more. I would
put it downright, the downright management. Villa got disoriented. The owners or the funders got completely disinterested. And being a club heavily controlled by funds, they also had a fair share of disorganization, and that's what it is. KCC will be very lucky that they have a backing from the authority. So there will be various change of guard as and when the results are not coming. They will definitely change guard, and we should be able to see things. Also. With Villa, it's a totally different ball game. It's the fans that decide. Everything is sentimental. The funders have since taken a walk. There's no administrative structure. It's a different ball game at Villa, and it's so sad that you would have loved that this kind of dominance with KCC shouldn't be Vipers alone. It should have had some Villa putting in a shout here.
But Express has just done that this season, and
very good.
And we've
very
had
good for Express.
We have had them win probably.
Very good for Express, I tell you.
So
after several years, 10 years maybe?
Yeah, about 10.
2012, about 9 years.
So would you rather Villa? I mean, would you rather Vipers or Express win the league if it's not KCCFC? If you were to choose, well, it's KCCFC and KCCFC.
On the balance of play, if you look at when was the last outside KCC and Vipers? When was the last team?
I think since 2012
again. 12, Express. So you kind of thought that you needed some new winners, because you need to spice up the league. The league is pointless if it's only 1-2 teams playing, whether strong enough. So I would want a strong Villa, a strong URA, a strong KCC, a strong Vipers, a strong Express. Any day, 5 top teams, good enough. You look at how England is. They were first top 4, now it's top 6. The growth has to be exponential. So it's not a good thing that KCC and Vipers are the only strong teams. We need very strong teams, maybe 5 of them, to push the lower teams.
To push the lower teams. Fantastic deliberations from Colin. We still have Colin on the show because we have a segment to go. Well, we'll be discussing the change in guard in KCCFC. Mid-season, we had some changes happening in terms of everything, the management, the technical team. We'll be discussing this and more, but after this break. Well, guys, welcome back from that break. We still have Collins on the show, and Collins, for this one, we had a change in guard mid-season after the first 15 games of the season. Just to be precise, on the day the Uganda Cranes were knocked out of the AFCON 2022, I think. Yes, that's when Mike Motebi and KCCFC agreed, that is by mutual consent, to terminate his contract. And in came Molevie Kwaso, on interim basis. But first of all, how much do you think this affected the team during the season? Or these things happen, probably we have seen them in the leagues that people follow. It's basically the change in guard in your own perspective.
I like the last statement, that these things happen in football. It's one of the things we must embrace, that what happens at Manchester United when they fire Mourinho mid-season should also happen here. That's how football is, sad. Yeah, but there was a change in guards. Mike Motebi, the KCC coach, most successful in the KCC history. Him and the club chose to end their relationship and upstepped his assistant, a former player as well, KCC player, Molevie Kwaso. Yeah, that is something that caused the media outrage.
Big time.
So everywhere. Why was it fired? He's the best coach in the country. All sorts of things. But here's the thing: clubs have to move on. The coach Mike was teaching KCC for the 3rd time. So there's been 2 other times when he was either sacked or mutual consent. The past times didn't have, administration was not very clear on how terms were ending, but at least I witnessed the one of 2003. It was a sad end. It was a sad end where we had such a fantastic team. I was in that team from day one, trained with them. I knew what they were. We were going to play safe. Then somehow the coach wasn't satisfied with how they were treating us. Yeah, so we KCC mutually consented to the fact that they were parting ways with Mike, and Mole had to take over. That was at the backdrop of not so good results, to be honest. He was when did they leave?
At the about 15 games. We had played 15
halfway
games.
The season. Yes. And we were not first or second. Yeah. So had we had some good games? Yes, but sparingly. But also we had lost the game to Lowly AS Kigali. For me, I thought that was the biggest of them. We will be bullied by teams from North Africa, which we weren't. We shouldn't be beaten by a team from Rwanda. That team AS Kigali was here 12 months before that time, playing against Proline. And they were pure pensioners. Yeah. Well, they did quite some work. We brought in these Nigerians, Emery, maybe Baisenge, Nyonzimas, those veteran Rwandese players. Yeah. They took us off the park here. Yeah. Of course, it's unfortunate that we couldn't play the other game because of COVID. But they still beat us here. So for me, that was unforgivable. So it was sad that so Mike go. It's always sad because me and Mike share a very long history. Yeah. But I'm happy for Mole Biekwaso because he also has come of age and he should be able to take over the reins. And he did take over the reins. Yeah. Definitely,
you've talked about having some good games in there when Coach Mike was still around. But I will just take you back during that season. The first part of the season, KCCFC lost the first 5 games.
On the trot,
remember the first 5 games, there was Villa, the fourth game. Then there was a loss to URA before the team was traveling to AS Kigali. And then when the season resumed after Chan, there were a couple of games that were lost there. I remember there was a game to Bull, and then after we played around there, and then again we went to Vipers, lost a game, lost to a number of games were lost. That was in the first half. So probably, do you think the bad performance could have led to this, or because we have had bad performances before and the team got to win?
Yeah, true. Bad performances came in, but you want to think. I'll take you back briefly, not for the long, for the long talk. Is that once they signed the players at the beginning of the season, there was a lot of duplication. What do I mean? When you look at the entire contingent of the midfield part, we had players who could only execute defensive midfield roles. No attackers, no flying wingers. So there was a lot of duplication. So you had about 8 players who play the same
position.
Yeah, same style. I wouldn't want to say position. Same style. So that way you end up finding cases struggling to push the ball up front, to push for goals. In there, you eventually had to lose games because you were not scoring goals. If you remember when Aheebwa got injured and Sadat was in and out.
He had issues with his license.
We could hardly score. Yeah. So that was a problem in my opinion. But I think the writing had been on the wall for some time for Coach Mike. The team was weakening every passing season, and that AS Kigali, coupled with the several other losses, bad performances, had to culminate into that decision that they made.
Talking about you've talked about the bad losses, but also could it have been complacency on his side, because he felt probably he had won everything, taken the club to Confederations Cup and Champions League group stages, won a Sekafa after 41 years.
41 years.
Since 78, he won his last one that. Then winning about, I don't know how many, 4 or 5 league titles.
We've said that before. Everyone became complacent. Everyone thought wins were given.
That we had a birthright.
We had the birthright to winning and collecting things. It's a good place that we've been checked. Now we have to re-gig, reorganize ourselves and get back to winning ways.
I'll talk about the time when Mole comes in. His first 4 games, the club was when we won 3-0 against Bull.
Yes.
Then we had a game there in the Uganda Cup, I think against Nyamichobora, 1 home and away.
Yes.
Then we had another win there, and then there was a trip to URA. I think that was his first loss.
Yes.
And coupled with a couple of other losses in the league and then draws. If you're to compare his his performance in the 15 games that he has been in charge, plus the Uganda Cup games, definitely not forgetting that one where KCCFC lost to Express Football Club. Just try to analyze
the very last games, one of the very last
before
games.
they locked up. So he's just give it, point.
One thing you've got to appreciate is that these were two different people. Mike completely thought about the football differently. So will Mole. It's almost natural. We can't be the same even if we're coming from the same mother. So there was, when you look at Mike, free-flowing football, 3 defenders, 5 midfielders, what they call in Uganda Ntebankutebe. That's how he loves it. It's from the Dutch, it's from Barcelona, it's from the Spaniards. You score 3, I score 4, and that's how they get.
And he was comfortable with it.
And he was comfortable with it. It got to us when we couldn't score, and that's how the bad games.
So we would concede.
We would concede, but we wouldn't score. Yeah. So Mole now, on the contrary, loves to score. He loves to attack, but keeps a very, very tight defense. So you kind of think that there was a transition. The players had to begin to think about football differently.
Different philosophy.
From how Mike was teaching to how Mole is teaching.
In the middle of the season.
In the middle of the season. You've got to worry for the performances that come amidst such things. Most especially for a club that had cemented its style, that kind of what Mike used to call our way. So we had a certain way we were playing. But once a coach who believes in that goes, then you have to be ready for the coach who believes in something else. And that caught us in that kind of transition. Are we leaving this? How do we now deal with this? Because we have to go back to 4 defenders, 4 midfielders. That's how he loves it. And 2 centre forwards. Mike will tell you, I want my midfield packed, spaced defenders, because I want the ball in the other half all the time. Yes. So that kind of brought up the bad performance.
I'll talk about the philosophies because you've hinted on that. Mike was known for the 3-5-2. And then we have seen with Mole different combinations change within the game. What do you attribute this to? Could this be probably what is happening world over? You're more technical than I. You can help me in this one. 2
things. I'll tell you that there are 2 types of coaches. Some are philosophers, philosophical in nature. Others are strategists. Mike is philosophical. He believes in this thing. It has to work. Marcelo Bielsa, the Pep Guardiola, all those Venus Michels, the Johan Cruyff believed in a certain way of playing. So was Arsene Wenger in a certain way of playing, and they would never swap it for anything. So on the contrary, I think Mole is a strategist. So he will look at what can give him results in the short and long term. So Mike, for him, he says, we will master this until we get to winning ways. The Spanish national team did it. Barcelona did it. Took Barcelona. Cruyff went to Barcelona in '82. They had to win their first Champions League 10 years later. They had quite about 7-8 seasons without winning the league title. So you have to be very strong-willed to be like Mike. Yeah. Other coaches won't. Jose Mourinho, for example, is a strategist. He will say, I'm planning for this game. I don't care about what happens tomorrow. Let me plan and get a win. So there's that, you find that there was that variation. But I want to also highlight something. When Mike used to start a game with 3-5-2, there were some changes. Sometimes it would be 3-3-1-1, 3-3-4-3, then 3-1-3-1. You remember when he was playing with Chiravira, Isaac Chiravira as a holding midfielder, then he was playing alone until you said, look, there's a big distance this kid has to cover. It can't play at the continent, we will be exposed. So you bring in Ivan Tege so that he can cover the spaces. You remember that, Tom? So there will be, the coaches will differ from how they look at football. And the players, for me, my only advice is that embrace everything that comes. Be willing to learn.
Willing to learn, that's a very important thing, especially when it comes to players. And now we've seen the different, you've said philosophies, strategies and everything. What is the way forward? Because football has to go on. We have a month to Sekafa Kagame Cup. KCCFC are the defending champions of the Sekafa Kagame Cup in 2019. In 2020, the tournament didn't happen. That means KCCFC, even after finishing 4th, will have to go back and defend that.
So that means Uganda will send 2 clubs?
Yes, definitely. KCCFC and Express, the winner. So that tournament happening in a month, the players at home in a lockdown. How do you see KCCFC's chances in that tournament? Plus, the way forward, what happens now that...
First and foremost, I would wish that management, we are not a firing club. It's only circumstances that have caused us have so many coaches and this and that. But we kind of stick to our people for some time. At least we are not the firing club of Uganda. So I would love the management to give more some time to exert himself onto the club, onto the squad, so that the players understand what he means and what he expects of them. Challenge is that the COVID now. So the players at home, there's no minimal contact, there's nothing going on. Of course, bodies have now, with lack of training, bodies cool down. So this Sekafa is not something I'm going to write where they expect much where players haven't been together for what?
About now 20 days?
20 days. But remember, they were also not training very regularly at the time when we won that Sekafa. When we won
yes,
that
because
Sekafa.
I remember that there were about 3 or 4 that were with the Uganda Cranes for the AFCON at the time.
Remember,
and then we went straight into Rwanda.
Yes, off a full compacted season.
Yes.
It's the same, that is not the same this time. So it's going to be challenging for Mole to regroup. Remember, there are some departures now, some kids have come in, to regroup and find a unit that can give us the kind of performance we got in 2019. So I don't want to, I would love Mole to have his squad exert himself. But I wouldn't expect much from Sekafa. Maybe when the league starts.
Are you more wishing the players go out there and enjoy themselves, probably try out different formations and probably rub shoulders with teams like Simba that have a league going on and will just have about 2 weeks of rest?
Now, when I begin to speak about Simba and Yanga, I even shed a tear. Yeah. We were supposed, KCC in 2015, we had plans or dreams of being as big as Simba. Not even financially, but football-wise. These guys are off a Champions League campaign that was something to behold. No club has
They almost got to the semi-final.
They almost got to the semi-final. They are now rubbing shoulders with the big boys. Yeah. But look at how much work they are doing. So it's a good opportunity that these young players of KCC are going to play with the likes of Kagere and Patrick Wawa, Boko and
Chama
and Erastonyoni.
Yeah.
These are very, very experienced
top players.
Top players. Yeah. I would love that kind of experience. KCC must draw lessons from the kind of experience.
Draw lessons, just like you say, it's going to be a little bit tough because these clubs are playing football and they're active, and they're going to be at home.
Active. Yeah.
They have, with Tanzania, they don't know anything about COVID. I've been able to watch some of their games on
80,000 packed to the brim.
I don't think we have players in that KCCA team, apart from Juma Balinya, who was there, who have played in
such an atmosphere
that has 80,000 fans.
No, some of these things are very, very strange to
But well, it's an experience for them. Yeah. As we wind up, you've talked about the club giving more time. Yeah. What else has to be done as we wind up?
Well, they are recruiting now. I'm hoping they are recruiting to win the league.
What should they focus on?
Yes,
as they recruit?
Yes. We're coming off 2 years without winning the league, meaning we won't have even continental competitions this time round. So we have very few distractions.
We should have
focus on winning the league, and maybe then we can beef up the club in terms of personnel to now play competition, rather continental competition. For now, the focus should be making sure they understand, the players understand what you want, and more is result-oriented. We should be able to win that league. After 2 years period, we should be able to win that league.
What any changes or any players you wish would see?
It is some. Of course, getting a player nowadays requires several other things. Is the club winning? Is the player winning?
Probably players you've seen playing.
Yeah, but what I wanted. It's a recommendation I gave to one of them. That one is that we needed to offload some players to avoid the duplication of roles. Secondly, we needed to look at, I think we are very good defensively. We still have a sound goalkeeper. And the young ones are even, in my opinion,
Magambo now playing in the national team.
Yeah, so there's a very good, that defense should not be touched, apart from right back position, which was a big challenge. So we need to be more intentional on scoring goals, more intentional on creating chances. That has to be done with the playing staff on how you recruit.
Finally, do you think Ugandan football is ready for technical directors, because probably the coaches need people that can check them. Do you think we're at that level yet?
Absolutely.
Why?
The one thing, we are going to lag behind on infrastructure, on money and everything. The one thing we should never let the world leave us is on the technical aspects of the game. Whether we are broke as church mouses or very rich. Because once the game moves, it has moved. And once these days it evolves in 2 to 3 year spells. So we need technical directors. We need more thinkers in the game than just, we want to move away from that whole thing of, I'm an ex-player, I must coach, I'm able to coach because I played. No, we need to understand that there are people who understand the game, even without ever playing it. So I think a technical directorate is very, very important. If anything, we need a much smarter one at the top of the federation. I don't think I'm comfortable with the way the technical directorate runs football at say, national team level. At FUFA? Yeah.
Well, there would be so much we'll talk about in your parting shots as you look into that camera,
yes.
Your final words as we wrap this up, because it's been a fantastic show.
It's a very first time to be on KCCFC TV. Yeah. It is sad that it has been here that Feya and me, who is a very, very staunch KCC fan, I'm being hosted here for the first time. I'll hold Magero to it.
My bad.
It is his bad. Thank you for taking the responsibility.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Moses Magero, and to the KCC fans. Stay strong, come in numbers. It's an opportunity to support a club that has a history of that nature. Since 1963, Aluta continue.
Wow, fantastic discussions and deliberations we've had on the show tonight. That's Mr. Collins and Subika. Most of them call him
Colino. They call me several other names.
And Gaza. Very, very many other names. He's been around the game
years, yeah,
for quite some time. And basically we had that discussion about the 2020-2021 season. So much happened. The club going the second season without winning any silverware, some players leaving and so much. But just to give you an update from the football club, this week 2 players were confirmed to have left KCCFC because their contracts ran down. Moses Kalanzi, a defender that joined KCCFC last season, played only 1 game for the club, that was against Bull Football Club, was let go by the football club because he ran down his contract just at the end of the 2020-2021 season. And Fillbert Obenchan, a player that has been at KCCFC for the past 6 years, 2 years in the junior team, 4 years in the senior team since 2017. Also ran down his contract in May and was let go by the football club. So we wish them the very best and wish them everything that they would want to achieve at whatever club they might play for. That is next season. Guys, that's been season 2, episode 30. We'll be back with episode 31, still season 2 next week, where probably, because it's silly season, we might have a signing. Or who knows, we might be confirming some things next week. I don't want to promise anything, but just make sure you tune in 10 p.m. every Sunday on Sanyuka TV. My name is Magero Moses Mwanje. Have a good night.